Welcome to Inside Plug, the podcast where independent creators and entrepreneurs connect and inspire. I'm your host, Devon Jones. Today on our show, we have returning guest. He's a writer, he's an actor, he's a director, filmmaker, been through all the creative aspects you can think of. Returning guest, welcome back, Neil Chase.
Oh, thank you so much, Devon. It's a pleasure to be back.
Glad to have you back. And Neil, as I mentioned before, you and a few other filmmakers have launched us to where we're at today. This year, we had over maybe 50 episodes. And when we first started back with you guys back in like 2022, we were just barely cutting five. So thank you for sharing your journey and thank you for continuing filmmaking. And we're glad to see, what you've been up to. But for the listeners who have not had a chance to check out that previous episode that you've done, um, where did this all begin for Neil Chase?
Well, I think I've been a storyteller pretty much my whole life. I I've loved movies and the medium of storytelling since I was a little kid. Just going to the movies, watching movies at home, um, playing pretend with my friends, right? All of that stuff, and then that sort of evolved into just wanting to tell my own stories, and then where it really picked up steam for me was in the early 2000s. I had moved cities because of just because of work, and I didn't really know anybody where I moved to, and the city I live in now, Edmonton, Alberta, and I thought, one way that I might be able to sort of bridge this sort of thing of like not knowing people, getting to know people on a more social level, but also trying something I'd never tried before. And so I took an acting class for my very first time. And that was really kind of my introduction to this world of entertainment. And it was really cool. Like it started off as like a acting for the theater class. Then the following semester, I took an acting for the camera class, which I found I really enjoyed even more. And that's what it kind of started that whole film journey for me. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. I got cast in a couple of little short films, which I really found exciting. That was so much fun. And then I started writing my own short scripts. And that then transitioned to writing feature scripts. And because I was still new to the whole thing, I didn't really know honestly if those scripts were any good or not. When you have a small circle, everybody wants to be nice and tells you, "Oh yeah, that was great," but is it really? I don't know. So what I started doing was entering them into film competitions and screenplay competitions, and lo and behold, they started winning. And that was kind of where I thought to myself, okay, maybe there's something in this for me. And little by little, that, I had a couple of scripts produced, turned into actual movies, which was amazing. But then I took it the next step, and that was like, okay, I want to try making my own films next. And that's kind of where I'm at in the journey now. We've just finished our second feature, my partners and I, and it's called Contamination. It's a military action sci-fi horror film, um, and it's been an absolutely amazing trip, and I look forward to talking about that more. But that's kind of where I'm at in the journey. And on top of that, in the last few years, I've started doing more story coaching and consulting myself, because as I got more success, people started coming to me and asking me for help with their scripts. And now that's actually become a business of mine, and it's something that really motivates me. I love helping people. I love helping them find their voice. I love helping them better their scripts and bringing their stories to life.
I love that. I love that. All right. Yes, we're definitely gonna touch on more about contamination. But first let's rewind back a little bit. So when you went from acting to writing and you decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, was it um what was it that kind of sparked that, okay, writing is like that determined path? Was it like a script or was it something that you found in writing versus, over the acting?
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a combination of both, to be honest. Um, so I've always loved writing, but it was more of like the short story type of writing. And then when I discovered screenplays, it just came really easily to me. And what I loved about it was the difference between the two mediums, right? When you're writing short stories or novels, you kind of have to think about all the five senses, right? Because it's such an immersive thing to read a book or to read a story that you have to think about what does the character say? What does the character think? What does the character feel? What does the character dream about? What does the character taste? And all of the senses, right? In a film, it's really just two senses. It's what can you hear and what can you see? And that's it. And when you think about writing in those two senses, it kind of simplifies everything. And I love the efficiency of screenwriting. And I just sort of like really took to it. And yeah, I don't know. I found it came easier to me. I found I could finish stories quicker. And I also approached it kind of from an actor's standpoint. So having gone through the acting first, I think helped me as a writer because getting to know other actors, I could tell what do actors look for in a great role or in a great screenplay when they're reading, right? Um, and so I really took it to that mindset.
That's awesome. And yes, yes, as you were saying that, I'm glad you broke it down to where different from, the novel and then screenwriting with the senses. Because immediately came to my mind was how would you know if a character is hungry? Either, they show you or dialogue they tell you.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, all right, so now let's jump into some of your projects. So let's talk about Contaminations, one of your the latest ones. You said it's military themed. How did that come about with that experience?
It was kind of a combination of things. So a few years back, I'd done my first feature film, which is called Spin the Wheel. It was filmed under COVID conditions, which meant, it was very contained, very small. It was a single location, primarily film. We had a very small cast, very small crew. We were under all those different conditions where everybody had to wear masks and all of these things, and it was, that crazy time. But it taught me a lot. And what it taught me was a lot more on how to be really, really efficient in filmmaking, where when you have very little money and few resources, you have to stretch it out as much as you possibly can. And I think it really pushed me as a storyteller, as a filmmaker. And I thought, okay, for the next thing, I want to do something bigger, more action oriented, and just honestly more fun. I grew up on action movies. I love them. It's one of my, all-time favorite genres. And that's something I wanted to do. But of course, me being me, I wanted to sort of twist a couple of other genres in there, throw a little bit of sci-fi, throw a little bit of horror in there. And I've gotten to know a lot of people in my circle who are really good at this stuff, but they don't get an opportunity to showcase it very often. The part of the world I come from, there isn't very much action made here. It tends to be more, you see a lot more dramatic works, a lot more things like coming of age films or rom-coms or you'll sometimes see some stuff on the horror side, but it tends to be like slow burn horror or even slasher horror, but it's you don't really see very much action. And I thought that's a shame because there's a lot of people who are really good at this stuff, but they're not really getting a chance to showcase it. And that was kind of the driver of it. And I talked with my partners in Brimstone Pictures, the company, our production company, and we discussed it. I said I kind of got an idea for an action movie, and I think we can pull this off even on a low budget. And just as things sort of kept coming together, we've got one of the most amazing producers in the world, Preston Wasiuk, my partner, and David Haycock is my co-director on the film. And the three of us, when we put our heads together, it's kind of amazing, like what we've been able to accomplish. Um, because the film just kind of grew. It was kind of amazing. It was meant to be kind of like a couple of guys running around in the woods. and things happening to them. But then that grew from that to like suddenly we've got at our disposal actual military Humvees, and we've got a jet airplane in the movie that we actually fly in. At the start of the film, we've got access to actual biomedical labs that we went to. It's funny, I like to joke that our film is probably the only movie that shows like an infection in a biomedical lab where we use actual biomedical scientists in our movie, and they're the ones who are infected. So it's like it's almost like real life in a way. And we really leaned in hard into the authenticity of everything and trying to make it look as gritty and real as possible. So we put a lot of work into our stunts and stunt work. We had a wonderful stunt coordinator by the name of Jack Morrison, who's a really wonderful guy, and he worked so hard with the core cast in developing some of those physical moves. And then we worked with some actual military personnel, former military, active military, one of which is one of our cast members, Tom Sunderland, who's a major in the Canadian Armed Forces. And we learned actual military maneuvers, how to do CQC, clearing a room, how do you walk properly through hallways where you don't know what's around the corner? How do you act when there's a firefight? What is the proper positioning of yourself in alignment to the people around you? How do you hold your rifle properly, right? How do you reload quickly? How do you, like, all of these things we wanted to try to make it as authentic as possible. And I think it shows, honestly. It's one of the biggest compliments we keep getting on the film is like how real everything feels, which to me is like a huge badge of honor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And with that extensive work that you guys had to put in, how long would that training like lasted you guys?
Well, it was kind of like a mini boot camp scenario, right? We would, a lot of the people had day jobs, so we would just kind of meet when we could, either in the evenings or on weekends, things like this. Jack was fantastic because he arranged actually, he goes to a MMA dojo, and the gentleman running the dojo, his name's Martin, he actually let us train there. And so it was fantastic, like just having that sort of openness and people willing to just like, hey, do you guys need this? Hey, like that's how the jet came about, for example. We wanted to do something with just an airplane hangar, kind of showing our guys arriving at this sort of air base for that sort of opening scene where they're getting the debriefing. Well, the person we're talking to who owned the hangar, he said, well, do you guys want to go up in the jet? So
Nice.
sort of like, hell yeah, sweet too. So that's how that came about. And suddenly we've got a scene that we're actually filming at 20,000 feet up in the air. That originally wasn't even in the script, but I wrote a scene out because I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm not going to take advantage of something this amazing. And that was one of the really cool things that happened in this movie is that anybody we talked to about the film and told them about it, they just got really excited. And the first thing anybody said to us is like, how can I help? How can I be part of this? And it just snowballed from this little tiny thing to suddenly it's like much bigger than I think its budget shows it to be.
That's awesome. Add us to the list. And for those listeners out there, I'm sure they want to know as well. So with that, where can we find contamination?
Well, we're just finishing it off right now. So we're in the final process of finalizing the sound on the film. So putting in the score, and we're doing some sound, just fine tuning, right? Cleaning it up, dialogue, sound effects, things like this. But the film's pretty much at picture lock right now. We've put in, I think, all of the visual effects. The color grading is done. So it's like that close, and we are started submitting it to film festivals. And we're just sort of waiting to hear back from some of them right now. But in the meantime, we do plan on having some live screenings in theaters in our area in Alberta. And we are hoping very much that we can share news very soon of like with other people and over the US and around the world where else they could see it.
All right, everyone, and we will keep you updated on that. And also with that, Neil, where can they find you as a filmmaker? Can they find some of your previous works?
The best way to find stuff about me would be on my own website, neilchasefilm.com, all one word, or at brimstonepictures.com, which is my production company. So I think you'll find pretty much everything about me within those between those two sources. Yeah, I've got a couple of movies. I've acted in films. I've written some films. I've also written novels. I've got a novel out called Iron Dogs that's done really, really well, both in print and as an audiobook. I'm just finishing up another novel right now. So it's I keep busy, let's put it that way, but I love this stuff. So, nothing else I'd rather be doing.
Awesome. There's nothing wrong with busy. We call it good busy around here. We're busy doing good things, things that you love doing. Awesome. So you mentioned some acting in there. Let's talk about this project real quick. Markings of Murder. How did you get a part of that project and you're acting in that project?
Yeah, that's a movie I was in. It's a locally made thriller. I'll be honest, my part isn't very big in that film. It's one of those things where, as an actor, you sort of you take on what roles you can, especially in a small film hub like where I live. This isn't LA or Vancouver, so it's not like there's dozens of projects happening all at once. Um, Sometimes you have to take what you can get. And yeah, I've had bigger roles in films, and then smaller roles, one scene, something like that. I think that's what it was in Markings of Murder. I think it's like a single scene role in that film. But you know what? I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to work with the people around here. I think there's a lot of great talent in this city. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun acting.
How was that gun back from like how what was the time frame from like you writing and you like acting, with the separation?
Well, I started acting in the early 2000s, just from taking an acting class, which then ballooned into from first taking acting class for the theater to taking acting class for the camera, then getting cast in some smaller short films, and then I got cast in a feature film. It was like, I think it was my very first audition, believe it or not, or maybe my second. It was crazy, like how quickly that happened, and it was like one of the lead roles in a feature film. So that happened really quickly. It was a movie called Ordinary Decent Criminal, and where I played a police captain, I think it was, or something like this, like the lead investigator of some a mystery, and that was really cool. That was such a fantastic experience, and that just kind of led to more things, and then I learned very quickly. It's like, oh, you can't just take like lead roles for granted because that only happens every so often. It's more the case that you're just going to get like a nice little supporting part and whatever. Um, and I've always been the mindset, like every role can be a great role, or has the potential to be a great role. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is. It's what you do with it, right? It's I think how much you immerse yourself in it and how much you bring to the table. That's what really matters. And I had the same mentality with my writing, because that's kind of how the writing side took off, was having done some of these smaller projects. I started writing my own short films, and then that ballooned into writing features, and the rest is history from there.
Awesome. And then now we have Brimstone Productions.
Brimstone Pictures. That's right.
Brimstone
Yeah, yeah.
Pictures, sorry. Brimstone
That's okay. That's all
Pictures.
good.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Neil, we are at that part of the episode where we ask this question. What is a book, a TV show, or a film that you recommend to an inspired writer, director, or filmmaker?
Uh, a book I can recommend would be On Writing by Stephen King. I think it's a fantastic book, where he just sort of talks about his experiences with the writing process. his insights, having learned so much and having done so much. He's such a prolific writer. He's one of the fastest writers I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how that man manages to write as much as he does, but it's, amazing. The quality of his writing has always been wonderful. I'm a huge fan of his. So that's a book that I would recommend to any aspiring writer. As far as films go, I think one of my very, very favorite films would be Rocky, the original Rocky movie. It's a film I recommend to anybody that wants to learn really all of the core elements of making a great film are within that film. It's got a wonderful plot, it's got a great structure to it, an amazing protagonist, great supporting characters, great antagonist, wonderful conflict, so much subtext, like everything. I think it's one of those films that fires on all cylinders. And it's like, to me, there's no surprise why that movie won Best Picture or Oscar, because it's like, yeah, it really was the best picture for that year. So that's a movie I would recommend.
Definitely, definitely. All right, everyone. Thank you for checking us out today. Neil, thank you for returning, and we look forward to seeing more of your work out there.
Thank you for having me, on. This is awesome.
All right, everyone. Remember, just stay inspired and keep creating. Inside Plug, signing out.